The harbor's deep bellow pierced through Seattle's midnight calm like a thunderclap, yet it couldn't mask the wordless cry trapped in my throat as I spotted a hauntingly familiar silhouette weaving through the masses. There, in flesh and blood, stood Elizabeth, my beloved wife whom I'd supposedly lost to a devastating blaze 24 months ago. I'm Michael Thompson, a 45-year-old structural engineer from Eugene, Oregon, who'd traveled to Seattle for a standard bridge construction supervision. Just another project to keep the demons of my past at bay. That day, the city was drowning in a relentless downpour, transforming the streets into a monochrome watercolor. Seeking refuge, I'd settled into a quaint coffee shop near the construction site, sipping my Americano when I glimpsed her through the rain-streaked glass. She emerged from a glossy black sedan, her stilettos tapping against the wet concrete, wrapped in an elegant designer coat that caught the glow of the street lamps. The Elizabeth I remembered wore well-loved denim and radiated warmth, not this sophisticated stranger with perfect makeup who giggled while holding onto a man's arm. The coffee cup quivered in my grasp, scalding my fingers, but the pain seemed distant. 2 years of grieving, of rebuilding a life for our children, Emily and Jacob, crumbled in seconds. This wasn't some apparition born from my grief. This was real, and a revelation struck me with devastating force. My entire reality had been built on deception. Before we continue this serpentine narrative, I'd like to take a brief intermission. I'm curious about where you're tuning in from today. Feel free to share your location in the comment section below, and if you're already invested in this story, don't forget to subscribe to catch what happens next. I pushed back from my table, the metallic screech lost amid the cafe's ambient noise, and ventured into the rain. My jacket quickly soaked through as I navigated the crowd, my heartbeat thundering in my head. She was mere steps away, her back turned, still arm in arm with that stranger. I called out her name, Elizabeth. She stopped dead, her body tensing before turning with agonizing slowness. Our eyes locked, hers filled with unmistakable shock, her complexion ashen. For a fleeting moment, I recognized the woman I cherished, the one buried in my memories. But then her expression hardened, and she regarded me with calculated unfamiliarity. The man beside her, tall and immaculately dressed, looked concerned, glancing between us. He began to speak, but Elizabeth interrupted, her tone glacial and precise. "You must be mistaking me for someone else." My fists tightened involuntarily, raindrops cascading from my hair into my eyes. The wrong person? After 18 years of shared life, raising 2 children together, and enduring a funeral that had left me emotionally devastated, she thought 4 simple words could erase our entire history. The well-dressed man's frown intensified, his grip visibly tightening on her arm, but his identity meant nothing to me, not at this moment. I moved closer, keeping my voice controlled and unwavering. "I'm not creating a disturbance, Elizabeth, but this conversation isn't over." Her eyes darted anxiously, searching the surroundings for an escape route before she tugged urgently at the man's sleeve, pulling him away into the sea of pedestrians. I remained rooted to the spot, watching puddles form around my feet as she disappeared once again. This time, however, I was determined not to let her fade into obscurity without providing the explanations I deserved. Back in my Seattle hotel room, raindrops drummed an agitated pattern against the windowpane, echoing the turmoil churning inside my mind. I couldn't dispel the image of Elizabeth, her cold dismissal cutting more deeply than the years of grief I'd endured. Sleep remained elusive, my untouched suitcase occupying the corner while my laptop cast a harsh glow from the desk, promising answers I wasn't certain I was prepared to face. 18 years of marriage flickered through my consciousness, a slideshow of memories I desperately clung to like lifelines. Elizabeth had once been my foundation, or so I believed. Our paths had crossed at a Portland hardware store, with me struggling over blueprints while she offered a timid smile above a stack of financial documents. She'd been a junior accountant then, fastidious with figures, always ensuring our household budget balanced precisely. I'd fallen for her quiet resilience, the way she'd sing off-key while preparing our family meals. Now, those cherished memories felt as fragile as a house of cards, trembling beneath the weight of her deception. I approached the laptop, my fingers hovering uncertainly above the keyboard. Our shared bank account, maintained out of habit after the fire, displayed on the screen. I neglected checking it for months, focused on supporting Emily and Jacob. As the page loaded, my breath hitched. Recent transactions illuminated the screen, each one more impossible than the last. A first-class ticket to San Diego from 3 weeks ago. A luxury hotel stay in Seattle charged the previous month. High-end shopping sprees. Expensive dinner bills for two, accumulating thousands. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the entries. This wasn't mere survival money. This was an extravagant lifestyle maintained while I struggled on my engineer's salary and the insurance settlement that supposedly represented her final act of love. Now, it felt like an unwitting participation in theft. The room tilted violently, forcing me to grasp the desk for stability. My thoughts drifted to the months preceding the fire. Elizabeth had begun receiving mysterious calls late at night, always stepping onto the porch, phone pressed firmly against her ear. She dismissed them as work-related emergencies, her accounting firm supposedly handling a major client. I'd accepted her explanation, too exhausted from my construction projects to question further. Then came the weekend disappearances, her bags hastily packed for sudden business conferences in obscure locations. She'd returned distracted, avoiding eye contact, but I'd attributed it to professional pressure. My blind faith had made me oblivious. The signs were clear now, the warning signals I'd overlooked. The fire hadn't been coincidental. She'd orchestrated her departure, leaving me to mourn a fabricated tragedy while she embarked on her new existence. I thought of Emily, our 15-year-old, whose razor-sharp intelligence masked the deep wound of losing her mother. She'd immersed herself in academics, desperate to prove her resilience. Jacob, barely 12, had grown increasingly withdrawn, his desk overflowing with architectural drawings, a silent homage to the family he believed we'd been. They'd wept uncontrollably at her memorial service, clutching me as I stumbled through heartfelt tributes. How could I reveal that their mother hadn't perished, that her love hadn't been strong enough to keep her with us? My chest constricted with a mixture of fury and fear. These bank transactions weren't coincidental, they formed a pattern. She hadn't bothered concealing them, perhaps assuming I'd never investigate, content to play the role of the bereaved husband indefinitely. Or maybe she simply didn't care anymore. I retrieved my phone, opening a photograph from the previous summer. Elizabeth, Emily, and Jacob at the Oregon coastline. Their hair windswept as they shared laughter over their sandcastle creation. I'd captured the moment, my voice strained from competing with the crashing waves. That woman had vanished, replaced by today's unfamiliar figure. The suited man beside her haunted my thoughts. His identity and involvement remained mysteries I needed to solve. Hunches wouldn't suffice. I needed concrete evidence to expose her deception. The laptop screen flickered as I searched for Amanda Clark, a private investigator recommended by a colleague. My finger wavered over the call button. This wasn't the conclusion Elizabeth had initiated this deception, but I would uncover the truth. The following morning, Seattle emerged beneath a thick blanket of fog, its skyline blurred like fragments of an inescapable nightmare. I found myself seated across from Amanda Clark in her modest office, housed within a compact brick structure nestled in a secluded section of Capitol Hill. Her desk disappeared beneath mountains of paperwork, and coffee's distinct aroma permeated the space, yet her penetrating gaze remained unwavering and focused. After my dawn phone call, voice from a night without rest, she'd immediately agreed to meet. I revealed everything. Elizabeth's staged death, the orchestrated fire, the insurance settlement, and my jarring encounter with her yesterday, living a life that seemed to mock my family's grief. Amanda reclined in her chair, her fingers drumming steadily against her notepad. The tale didn't shake her professional composure. Her expression maintained a serenity I wished I could mirror. I pushed my phone toward her, displaying the illuminated bank records. Her expression tightened as she examined them before offering a decisive nod. The case was hers. By midday, Amanda had uncovered a promising lead. She traced Elizabeth's credit card to a luxury high-rise in downtown, a towering glass structure reflecting the overcast sky. I trailed behind in my truck, its engine's steady drone accompanying my tumultuous thoughts. We stationed ourselves a block away, and she provided me with binoculars. Through them, I observed Elizabeth, or rather, her new persona, emerge onto a 20th floor balcony. She wore elegant silk, her hair immaculately styled, casually drinking from her cup, as though floating above reality. Amanda documented everything with her camera, each click promising vindication. I lowered the binoculars, nausea rising. This wasn't my Elizabeth anymore, She transformed into someone else, someone who discarded our shared life without hesitation. Over the next 48 hours, Amanda's investigation intensified, her updates becoming my anchor. She discovered her new identity, Victoria Hart. Elizabeth had recreated herself as a financial advisor at a prestigious firm near Pike Place Market. Her fabricated persona came complete with an impeccable professional history, expertly erasing all connections to Portland and the family she'd abandoned. Amanda's findings expanded. Social media presence under her assumed name, snapshots from exclusive events and upscale venues consistently featuring the same man from the cafe. She referred to him as Daniel, a prominent real estate developer owning a Belltown penthouse and known for ambitious projects. I examined the images on Amanda's computer, watching Elizabeth draped on his arm, her smile carefree and genuine. Each photograph reopened my wounds, but I suppressed the anguish. This had transcended personal pain. This was about Emily and Jacob, about revealing the truth they needed to hear. The pivotal moment arrived that evening. Amanda followed Victoria to an upscale waterfront establishment, a contemporary venue featuring expansive glass walls overlooking Puget Sound. I remained distant, concealed in a dimly lit parking area while she ventured inside, carrying a discreet recording device. She emerged an hour later, her expression radiating subtle triumph. Through her phone speaker, she played the captured audio. Victoria's voice cut through the ambient restaurant noise as she shared a laugh with Daniel, boasting about securing a substantial six-figure bonus. Then came the crucial slip. I incinerated that previous existence, she remarked, her voice casual, as if discussing discarding an old garment. Daniel's amused response showed his ignorance, but my veins turned to ice. Amanda halted the playback, her gaze meeting mine. "This is our evidence," she declared, "the foundation for building our case." Restlessness consumed me afterward. Amanda uncovered Victoria's next appearance, an upcoming charity function at the Fairmont Hotel scheduled for the following evening. She would attend as Victoria Hart, socializing with Seattle's upper echelon, Daniel accompanying her. Over scattered takeout containers in her office, Amanda outlined her strategy in hushed, determined tones. I would confront her amid witnesses, pushing her to unravel. She positioned herself, ready with a recorder, capturing every utterance. I acknowledged the plan, my hands finally steady after days of trembling. Elizabeth believed she'd bury my existence in those flames, but I had emerged transformed. The gala would serve as her stage, transforming into the scene of her undoing. I departed Amanda's office beneath a starless sky, city lights twinkling like vigilant eyes tracking my movement. Tomorrow would bring my confrontation with the woman who had betrayed everyone, exposing the truth regardless of consequences. The Fairmont Hotel radiated brilliance against Seattle's darkened skyline, its ornate chandeliers bathing the gala's sophisticated attendees in amber light. I positioned myself along the ballroom's perimeter, struggling with an uncomfortably snug tie, moisture gathering on my palms beneath Amanda's insisted upon borrowed attire. Champagne glasses clinked, and laughter mingled with the quartet's gentle melodies, but my attention remained fixed on Victoria. She navigated the space as Victoria Hart, her emerald gown commanding attention, delicately holding Daniel's arm. He stood impressively beside her in impeccable evening wear, maintaining a polished, broad smile. Amanda maintained her position near a marble column, recorder concealed within her clutch, signaling me forward with a subtle nod. My heartbeat intensified, driving me toward the inevitable confrontation. The moment had arrived to shatter her carefully constructed facade. I navigated through the crowd of guests, their mingled fragrances hanging heavily in the air, until I reached her table. The surrounding conversations diminished as I approached, my shadow falling across her plate. Victoria glanced up, her wine glass suspended mid-motion, her expression flickering with recognition before she masked it with a practiced smile. Daniel reclined in his chair, his forehead creasing with concern, but I spoke before he could intervene. My voice carried clearly through the space. "Good evening, Victoria Hart, or perhaps Elizabeth Caldwell is more familiar." The room fell silent, heads turning as curiosity rippled through the gathering. Victoria's glass quivered, red wine threatening to spill, but she placed it down deliberately and released a forced laugh, rising gracefully. She adjusted her gown, her voice carrying a defensive edge. "This gentleman is clearly confused. I have no idea what he's referring to." I moved closer. my composure strengthened by the evidence I carried. Confused? After 18 years of marriage, 2 children, and an orchestrated fire that supposedly claimed your life? Hardly. Shocked murmurs filled the silence as stunned faces turned toward us. I continued, my words methodically dismantling her carefully constructed persona. You abandoned us, Elizabeth, orchestrated that inferno, collected on $1 million insurance scheme, and crafted this luxurious new identity while Emily and Jacob grieved their mother. Daniel straightened his chair, scraping backward, his expression darkening. Victoria's composed facade cracked, her fingers twisting her napkin before she could respond. I withdrew the photograph Amanda had captured, images of her on the terrace, sharing intimate moments with Daniel, living extravagantly. I scattered them across the table, evidence of her deception. Care to explain these, Victoria? The assembled crowd pressed closer, whispers intensifying. Daniel seized a photograph, his expression hardening as he examined it. Victoria's voice rose, tinged with desperation. This is ridiculous. Someone called security, but Daniel raised his hand to silence her, his gaze unwavering, his voice emerging low and controlled. Is this true, Victoria? She faltered, her eyes searching frantically before adopting a pleading tone, reaching for his arm. Daniel, please, let me explain. I had debts, a past I needed to escape. He recoiled, standing abruptly, toppling his chair. Debts? A past you claimed to be unburdened by either? His voice broke, heavy with betrayal. I watched her composure shatter, the elegant Victoria heart dissolving into Elizabeth before the stunned assembly. Guests whispered among themselves, smartphones emerging to document her downfall. Her hands trembled violently, her carefully maintained poise evaporating. She whirled to face me, her eyes burning with unbridled fury. You destroyed everything, Michael. I maintained my composure, speaking with measured calm. No, Elizabeth, you accomplished that when you incinerated our existence. Daniel snatched his jacket, his features contorted with revulsion. He shouldered past her, muttering inaudibly, and marched toward the doors. Elizabeth's voice cracked as she called after him, desperation evident, but he continued without hesitation. The crowd separated like a startled flock, their faces frozen in shock as she collapsed into her seat, isolated beneath the harsh crystal illumination. I shifted away, my chest constricting not with victory but with a profound emptiness. Across the room, Amanda caught my attention, her subtle nod confirming the successful recording. Elizabeth's carefully constructed facade of deception had finally crumbled, revealing its true nature. I departed the gala's ambient sounds diminishing behind me as the crisp evening air struck my face with sobering intensity. She performed her role masterfully, but reality had finally caught up. I'd initiated the process of justice for Emily and Jacob, yet the aftermath weighed heavily, an inescapable burden. The journey back to Portland seemed interminable, the interstate stretching endlessly under an overcast sky, Seattle receding behind me. The memory of Elizabeth's unraveling still vivid, but the impending consequences loomed larger. Amanda's recording rested in my jacket, a tiny device containing the admission that would terminate this ordeal. I reached Portland as dawn broke, the city stirring sluggishly under gray skies, and proceeded directly to my attorney's office. Daniel Riley, lean and stern-faced, listened intently as the recording played. Elizabeth's voice casually confessing to destroying our former life. His pen moved steadily across his notepad, his affirmative gesture confirming my hopes. This evidence would prove devastating. I surrendered the photographs, financial records, everything Amanda had uncovered. He assured me he'd submit everything to law enforcement and insurance authorities by midday. Amanda phoned that afternoon, her voice tense with immediacy. She'd located Elizabeth at a dilapidated motel near the Canadian border, a shabby establishment along I-5 in Blaine, Washington. She'd fled after the gala, her vehicle loaded with luggage, her carefully constructed identity rapidly unraveling. Amanda had alerted the state patrol, who apprehended her at a filling station, her wrists bound as she ranted about a misinterpretation. I envisioned the scene, her sophisticated veneer crumbling beneath harsh lighting, and felt no sympathy. The story reached Portland by dusk, a brief headline illuminating my phone screen. Local woman detained in insurance fraud investigation. I darkened the display, my fingers numb. This wasn't the end, this was merely the beginning. The courthouse materialized a week later, an austere chamber of timber and metal, the atmosphere heavy with anticipation. Elizabeth occupied the defense position. Her luxurious emerald attire replaced by prison-issued garments, her complexion ashen and haggard. I settled into the gallery, Emily and Jacob flanking me, their fingers intertwined with mine. I had revealed everything the night following the gala, my voice faltering as I disclosed their mother's deception. Emily's expression had grown steely, her muteness more profound than any words, while Jacob wept, his tiny body trembling against mine. Now they observed her like strangers, witnessing the determination of her destiny. The prosecutor presented the evidence, Amanda's recording resonating through the room. Elizabeth's casual remarks sealing her fate. She'd orchestrated the fire methodically, evidence revealed, engineering an electrical malfunction with traces of accelerant the investigators initially overlooked. She'd secured the policy 12 months prior, increasing coverage shortly before the inferno, gambling on my ignorance. Elizabeth approached the witness stand, her voice quavering as she wove a narrative of despair. She described overwhelming debts, relentless creditors, employment instability. She claimed the staged death was an escape route, never intending our suffering. The fabrication dissolved against financial records revealing transfers to hidden accounts, wealth accumulated during our mourning. The judge's decision resonated with finality, a decade of incarceration, compensation mandated. Her gaze met mine as officers escorted her away, attempting words, perhaps seeking forgiveness, but I focused beyond her, watching Emily and Jacob. They remained steadfast, exhibiting an inner resilience I'd never witnessed before. I navigated the drive home, the vehicle enveloped in silence save for the engine's steady drone. Emily gazed through the window, eventually breaking the quiet with subdued words. Despite everything, she confessed she desperately wanted to believe in her mother's innocence. Jacob sat absorbed in a sketchbook, his pencil crafting a bridge spanning a deep ravine. I guided the car into our driveway, the house still our sanctuary thanks to the insurance company's verdict declaring me an unwitting victim rather than a co-conspirator. Though Elizabeth's scheme had crumbled and her freedom vanished, the wound she'd inflicted remained raw. That night, I embraced my children fiercely, knowing truth would be our collective armor moving forward. A year drifted by in Portland, seasons flowing one into another with gentle predictability. Our home gradually shed the spectral remnants of Elizabeth's treachery. One crisp autumn morning, I stood on the porch, clutching a steaming coffee, watching Emily load her belongings into a car destined for Oregon State University. She'd chosen to pursue civil engineering, her eyes alight with determination I hadn't witnessed since before the devastating fire. Jacob's soccer ball arced across the lawn, his carefree laughter mingling with rustling leaves, the sound mending something fractured within me. Months earlier, the insurance investigators had cleared my name, allowing us to retain the settlement that eliminated our debts and secured my children's educational futures. We'd methodically reconstructed not just our dwelling but our entire existence, one careful piece at a time. That afternoon's mail delivered an unexpected item. A plain envelope from Coffee Creek Women's Prison. Inside, Elizabeth's slanted handwriting filled a single page with crabbed lines. She wrote of newfound remorse, claiming solitude had forced her to confront the devastation she'd caused. She lamented her losses, freedom, fresh start, and the family she'd once cherished. Standing by the kitchen counter, I read her words, the paper quivering slightly, yet my heart remained unmoved. Emily, at the sink, spoke firmly. She wanted nothing to do with the letter, now or perhaps ever. Jacob peered from the hallway, sketchbook tucked under his arm, silently concurring. I folded the letter, relegated it to a drawer, leaving it unanswered. Her words couldn't restore what she destroyed. Jacob discovered his path to healing by joining a school support group for children with incarcerated parents. One afternoon, he came home clutching a flyer, his face glowing with quiet pride, sharing how he'd spoken about resilience at a meeting. His artistic focus had evolved. The bridges in his sketches gave way to homes, solid and welcoming, reflecting his yearning for stability. Emily called from university that evening, her voice slightly distorted through the connection, excitedly sharing news about excelling in her bridge design assignment. She spoke of transforming our hardships into determination, a silent promise to overcome. I listened intently, my heart swelling with pride. knowing they'd shouldered the burden of their mother's decisions and found their way toward light. I resumed my construction work, returning to job sites where my hands once again shaped steel and concrete into enduring structures. While the bridges I constructed spanned physical gaps, the most significant connections I rebuilt were with Emily and Jacob, our bond strengthened through adversity. Elizabeth's decade-long sentence stretched before her, a fitting consequence for her actions. Her prison letter remained forever unanswered. We'd emerged from her shadow more resilient, our family redefined by honesty. Through it all, I gained wisdom that cut deep into my soul. Truth, despite its sharp edges, liberates us from constraining lies, while trust is essential. Blind faith can leave you shattered. Life tests our limits, breaks us down, then teaches us to rise stronger from the wreckage. The story concludes here. I hope this ending resonates with you, perhaps even catches you by surprise. Share your thoughts below if this narrative touched you. Please like and subscribe for future stories. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.